Happy Friday and welcome to the channel. This is Fridays with Brandon, and this is episode number 3 of Real Estate Investing Journey. Today is the first episode that we're really going to get into some exciting stuff. We're going to talk about the first investment property that I ever had. And if you stick around to the end of the video, you will see a tour of me walking around just jibber jabbering about the condo and just reminiscing and looking back on things. The audio is not very good, but it'll give you an idea of what it looked like and what we're talking about. We're going to talk about numbers and how that works for most of this video, but I will, like I said, at the end I'll tack on that tour of the condo so you can check that out. Okay, so before we jump into it, if you haven't watched any of the other videos, there's a series of videos that's kind of talking about our real estate journey, and I would encourage you to go back and look at some of those. How we got to this point, excuse me, how we got to this point in our journey was through really being disciplined with with budgeting and getting ready to have the ability to have an investment. And I interviewed a few real estate agents. I met this sweet old lady named Judy. She was fantastic, my first real estate agent we ever worked with, and she just really was looking out for me. She was patient. She could point out things like, hey, there's cracks in that foundation. Did you notice that? And those things are important. When you're just starting off, you're exciting and you see possibilities behind every corner, and you don't think of anything that is too big of a hurdle to overcome. And so you need somebody that's going to point out a few of those things. I will say it's not like this condo was my first choice. When I was looking at investments, my goal was to have a 25% cash on cash return, and I had a whole Excel sheet that I made up that had my expenses and my estimated revenue and my down payment, and then trying to get a cash on cash return of at least 25%. So it was all pretty exciting and fun, and but I really wanted to do a single family house because I knew from reading all these books that single family houses appreciate at a much higher value than condos. So I was looking, and I couldn't afford much when it came to a house with only, $16,000 for a down payment. So we looked at a lot of houses, and we looked at houses that needed to be condemned, that were rehab houses, that had mold in the basement and everywhere else. And then one of the times she goes, I really think you should look at this condo. I think it could really fit your needs. So we went and looked at this condo, and it was great because I was traveling like 3-4 nights a week, single guy, traveling all the time. And I just didn't have the ability or the time to remodel something on my own, and I didn't have the cash to pay somebody else to do it to do it for me. So what I did is we saw this condo. It was move-in ready. We were already living in a condo, me and 2 of my roommates. They agreed to move in with me if I bought a condo. So we ended our lease when I bought this condo, and we all moved in together. And then essentially day one, it was cash flowing. So it worked out really well for us. But let's jump into the numbers. I'm going to show you just the numbers on the condo, and then I'm going to show you another sheet that really compares the difference between the condo or investing in real estate in this piece of real estate that I did and investing in maybe the stock market. Again, we're going to go back to 2011. You're going to see those numbers, and it is shocking, the difference. I was blown away when I ran the numbers tonight. So let's jump into it. Okay, so here's an Excel sheet with too much information than what most people like to digest. But this is something I try to track for each of our properties. I just find it's a really fun look. So what are we looking at here? Initial investment, $16,000. This column here is cash on cash return in percentages, and this column right here is our cash flow or payout on an annual basis. So the total for each year. So you can see my cash on cash return. The goal was a 25% cash on cash return. And you can see that with 16,000 down, the first year I really only had a month and a half of, I think I only collected 1 month of rent in 2011, but then 2012 we had a full year but only had 3 people living there, and then you see a big jump in 2013 because we have a fourth tenant in there. My wife and I, we got married sometime in May in 2012, so I moved out and we had a roommate move in, but we only had 3 still for most of 2012. And then in 2013, we were firing on all cylinders with 4 tenants inside the space. And you can see a real big jump up in the cash flow. Now, the cash flow and the ROI. Now, why are these highlighted green? Because at this point, if you're just doing it sheerly on math, this is when in 2014, the entire 16,000 had been paid back into our pocket. So technically at this point, the property was an infinite return. Now, we're not going to play with that, but I always think it's good to see when you do an investment, how quickly you get all of your initial investment back into your pocket. For us, we like to do some kind of celebration and buy something we wouldn't normally buy for ourselves. In this case, we bought I think 49-inch TV because we had a little TV from back when I was in college that we were still using, and we treated ourselves to that, and we still use it to this day. Our kids love Fridays for show days, and they still use it. So it's been a good little thing, and it reminds us of this first investment and when we were able to get all the cash back out of it. So building in little trophies or rewards for you in this journey will really help you kind of as mile markers that you're making those steps in the journey. So it just goes along, and this thing's just cash flowing like crazy, and it's a great little thing. And I would say on average, this probably took an hour and a half of my time every month, from collecting rent, changing an air filter, and depositing checks, and then filling out the Excel sheet. It did not take much time, and it was a really good use of my time to let my money work for us. Now you can see here in 2021, the condo had appreciated so much and we had paid down the mortgage that I saw some investments on the horizon. I was like, it is time to do a cash out refi. So it's not like we had a windfall of people paying a ton in rent. We did a cash out refi here. So that's why you see this 41,000. So we pulled money out, and then we were actually able to invest this money in another property. Obviously, all of this cash flow through here, we were able to invest as we moved forward as well. And then here in 2024 brings us to the present. We did sell the condo, and we still made far more than what we purchased it for. The original purchase price was $80,000, and we put just under $15,000 down, but I put a little extra in there as an investment because I always like to keep an emergency fund, and I typically will build up an emergency fund of at least 6 months of expenses, just because I like to be cautious. Now, you can make your money work faster for you, but then again, you might fall off the cliff, and you don't want to do that. So, hopefully that is simple enough and kind of explains it. Leave questions below if you have questions about this, but hopefully that explained it. Now, this is something that absolutely blew my mind when I looked into this. So I did this tonight. I threw together a little table that kind of compares and contrasts the real estate investing in a condo, a 3-bed, 2.5-bath that we've been talking about, versus the stock market. So when it goes back to October 2011, how much? 16,000 in both. Tax benefits, many, and I'll try to get into more of those in the future, but suffice it to say, depreciation is going to be one of the major ones. And so depreciation just tells the government says, oh, your property is becoming worth less because it's getting older, even though your property is going up. So every year that it goes down, goes quote unquote down in value, you get to write that off against your income. You don't get any of that with the stock market. So you see the ROI of 22.284%, and this is compounding. So if we took this total amount at the end of, or in 2024, this is just if we could invest the 16,000 one time and not touch it at all, then and it just compounded, and then you had this much at the end, the almost 200,000, you would have over 22% ROI, and that's what you're seeing. Whereas the stock market only performed at about 8.93%. So you can see at the end of 2024, going back to that previous slide, that our total amount was just under 200,000, that we were able to take cash out of the property when it was all said and done with refis, cash flow, and selling the property. Whereas this one, if you wanted to get your money out in 2024, the total amount you would have been able to get out and put in your pocket was less than 50,000. So 1/4 of what this is. And this isn't a true representation because some of that money got reinvested in other investments. Some of that cash flow over time got reinvested in other investments, which even made better. Now, average cash flow per year just for the condo, $5,300. Not bad cash flow. What do you get from the stock market? Nothing. You don't get to touch that money. You just get to look at it grow, but you can't spend it, you can't reinvest it, you can't do anything with it. Whereas the cash flow, you could choose to spend that on a car or medical bills or reinvest it, which is pretty slick. And then if you look, this is mind blowing to me. I was telling Anna, and I was just completely blown away. I didn't have any idea, but how critical this first investment has been to our livelihood today. So if you look at this, the cash flow of this money that's been reinvested is at a minimum $50,000 per year cash flow. So every year we're making around $50,000 just from this initial investment of $16,000. No extra money coming in. If that doesn't excite you, I don't know what will. That is really just fantastic. And now over here you see cash flow, you get nothing. If you pull this money out and decide you want to spend this $48,000, well, first off, the total amount you have in your stock market investing was less than 50,000, and it's less than what you can make year after year after year with this putting it into real estate. Now, I didn't edit this correctly, but the amount of work, basically this is a part-time job doing the real estate investing until you decide to make it a full-time thing. On this side, this should say zero work. So you do have zero work on the stock market, but you can see the return is just so much less. It's crazy. Now, I'll get more into this in the future, but I do want to share with you guys this 102,000. This is what we call capital gains. So when we sell a condo, guess what? You have to pay the difference on what the government has said the condo is worth and what you sell it for. And with how much it had been depreciated over the years, I'm right in the way, aren't I? How much it has depreciated over the years, and how much we sold it for, you can see it's almost $100,000 that we were able to, or over $100,000 we were able to get in a check form, but it was actually more than that if you look at the government says the thing is worth less. So it was going to be about a $30,000 tax liability in capital gains tax. But because we did a 1031 exchange, we are able to reinvest this entire amount and get zero tax on it, because the government wants us to put money back into the economy versus just putting it under our pillows. And so they are going to incentivize us to reinvest this. So as a result, because we were buying a old warehouse and a trucking company, we were able to take this entire amount, reinvest, and that $30,000 that would have went to Uncle Sam is now working for us and going to be cash flowing, if this property does what I think it's going to do, more like $10,000 a year, so 30% of that. So I'm talking a lot of numbers. If this excites you, that's great. Give me a thumbs up. If it's not, that's okay. You don't have to stick around. I won't be too offended. But do check out the next little bit if you want to see the tour of the condo. And if you have any questions about this, let me know. Oh, and one other thing. I know one of the biggest pushbacks is going to be, oh, you can't find investment properties like this. You can't find that kind of return anymore. And my response to that is, we've never had an investment that performs lower than 25% cash on cash return. And the current investments and the investment we made about 2 years ago and this current investment is going to far exceed our normal criteria of 25%. So these properties can be found, and you don't have to find 10 of them. You don't have to find 20 of them. You only have to find one. Because remember, you can only invest in one property at a time anyways, unless you have a full team. And if you have a full team, you're probably not watching this channel. So all you have to do is be patient, find that one investment, because that first investment might make all the difference in your cash flow and your dreams to get out of the rat race. So until next week, take care.
Okay, this is the first investment I ever made back in 2011. We actually are under contract right now to sell this thing. And I'll go over the numbers at some point, how this little guy was an investment for us. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath condo in the Cincinnati suburbs. And yeah, we just got it kind of refreshed. And this is, when I first bought this was a place I moved into with 2 other guys, my roommates. And I lived here. I'll show you my room down in the basement in a little bit. But I lived here for about 6 months before, well, 3 months before I got engaged, and then 3 months after that got married, and everybody else thought I would kick out my roommates, but I was a much bigger fan of cash flow than I was having more space than I needed. So my wife and I, we moved into a 2-bedroom apartment and actually rented this place out to 4 different people. And one of my original roommates was a tenant all the way until the day we told him we need to list this place to get it ready for sale. And he was a fantastic tenant for all these years. So it's 3-bedroom up here, as you can see. So when I moved in, I had 2 roommates that lived up here. We had 1 room vacant. I did not do a very good job of getting it rented while I was working full-time and living here. But then after my wife and I got married, we did get both my room filled and the other room filled. So we had 4 guys living here. And we rented them out per room, which is kind of a unique way of doing it. Typically, you're going to have people rent out the whole space, but we had it rented out per room, and it worked for us. This was my bedroom. I had a queen-size bed down in here, and, I had the other guys were pretty kind of stuck to themselves, so the only time they came downstairs was to go into the laundry room. And so it was a great little fit for us. And yeah, this is the whole thing. 3-bed, 2-bath with a basement room, so we could rent out to 4 people, and it was a great cash flowing property for us all these years. And now had appreciated so much in value that it was really time to go ahead and sell it. We're going to reinvest this money, do a 1031 exchange, and reinvest this money tax-free, no capital gains tax, into a new an old warehouse, but a warehouse that we're about to be buying. It's going to be exciting. So, oh, here's the back patio. I didn't get to show that yet. Here's the back patio. And where I used to park, right out here. There it is from the back. whole place.